Alright guys, welcome back for another video on Haikyu Fly High, and today we are going to take a look at the 3 new SSR memories, and I will also be personally summoning for them myself. Now you may actually be thinking, why would you be doing that? Because in a lot of my previous videos I did talk about, you should be saving off your memory ticket for the UR or SP memories, because they provide a lot more value, especially in terms of like the stats difference, etc. However, if you have watched one of my previous video when I talk about all of the future memories, you realize some of the memories in the future, some of the UR and SP one, they are actually very bespoke to the character they're designed for, and as a result, they're not very universal. And in those kind of circumstances, you may actually consider going for some SSR memories instead. And in that same video, at the bottom of that tier list, I did also list out one memory for each position, one SSR memory for each position, which I would actually seriously consider for. And it just so happens in this update, we actually happen to have 2 of them. One's going to be the mid blocker one, and one's going to be the liberal one. And that's kind of why I definitely want you guys to consider summoning for them. Now, obviously, it's going to be your decision on whether you actually want to go, just save out for UR and SP. However, I do feel like it's important for me to highlight out these 2 SSR memories are really, really good and can actually justify summoning for them as well, even though they're only SSR. Okay, so before actually talking about those 2 memories, let's start off with the third member, which is this opposite hitter one. So to be honest, this one is not too bad in terms of the effects it's able to do, because it's actually able to increase reflect, and reflect being probability based is normally going to be quite good. So normally I put a lot of priority in terms of memories, which can increase, awareness or reflect, but those are probability based. However, the problem with this memory in particular is more the fact that you only increase reflex, which basically means it's either for your receives or for your blocks. And then if we actually think about all of the opposite hitters out there, you will then realize the ones which are predominantly for receiving or blocks, there are literally only 3 characters available. One is going to be Daichi, one is going to be Konoha, and one is going to be Sasaya. So unless you are planning to play one of those 3 as your opposite hitter, otherwise there's literally no use of actually getting this memory. And in fact, I wouldn't rule out this memory completely either, purely because if we actually talk about some of the UR and SP memories in this game, they're all very offensive based, right? For example, the one for Ishijima or the one for Osama Miya. So if you actually want a defensive based opposite hitter memory, then this one can potentially be of use, and you may actually consider that. However, another alternative you can also do for opposite hitter, and that's probably actually going to be the one I recommend, it's actually the one for the Mad Dog, because the Mad Dog one is actually more of a supporting ability, which to me is actually going to be valued a bit more than this receiving or reflex based one. So once again, it's going to be up to you which one you want. If you actually want to play more of like a defensive opposite hitter, whether you want to play more of a supporting role or one more defensive role. But this can be considered if you just happen to have Daichi or Konoha or Sasaya as your opposite hitter, okay? But other than that, I wouldn't touch this memory at all. Now let's move on to the main highlight, I guess. So the mid blocker one and also the liberal one. So let's start off with the mid blocker one. This one is probably the best SSR memory in the sense that it has one very unique ability, in the sense that when the opponent performs a critical spot, this block is guaranteed to be critical, and this is actually massive, because the vast majority of the time you try to build up your critical rate by stacking up reflex, right? So first of all, even if you stack up reflex, you still won't be able to get that to 100%. So a lot of time reflex, because it's probability based, you have to waste up one of your potential slot to actually build it, and even then you can't guarantee it. However, this one can bypass that stats completely, which basically allow you to turn that potential slot into another more useful stats instead, which obviously is already going to be very good. And also this is actually going to be guaranteed to be critical when the opponent do a critical spike as well. So this mechanic by itself is already very good. It's almost like one of those mechanics which the stronger enemy you face, the better this will be, because the more they actually stack up their crit rate, the better this memory will become. So that's kind of what this one is definitely very, very good, and probably in my opinion, this mechanic is probably the best out of all of the SSR memories. Now, the ones that you may be considering, for example, is that this is only going to be guaranteed when the opponent perform a critical spike. How likely is that to be happening? To be honest, I will probably say this will happen quite often because unlike unless you play like a Naruto team, which is focused very much on not critting, otherwise I'll probably say 70 or 80% of all of the characters in this game normally would be crit base. Now, whether they can actually happen to be landing a critical spike every single time when they hit the ball, that's a different matter. However, vast majority of the time, you expect them to be built with a high awareness and a high critical spike. So therefore, this can be triggered quite often as well. Okay, so that's kind of what I definitely would advise summoning for this memory purely because of how good or how broken this mechanics is. So I will definitely be summoning for this myself because I am lacking a mid blocker memory. Then let's move on to the other candidate, which is going to be this liberal memory. Now, this one, first of all, the stats is good because it improves both your receive and save. So it actually increases your player rating by quite a bit. And in this game, team rating or player rating does influence quite a bit. So that's why this is already quite good by itself. And then the other thing is that when a receive or save is not bad, which to be honest happens quite often, your side is able to gain 10 morale. So this immediately means it's very good for Fukurodani team, but even outside the Fukurodani team, this is actually going to be massive as well, because when you actually in team morale awakening, basically all of your stats get buffed up. So this is just going to be a universal buff. And then on top of that, it can also boost your power spike as well. Now, even if you don't play like a power spike team, if you only play quick attack, it's still worth getting this memory purely because of the fact that he has really good stats, and also it can essentially give you some kind of supporting ability by increasing your morale. Okay, now the other biggest reason why you may actually consider something for this liberal memory is actually the fact that we wouldn't be getting any UR liberal memory in the future. The next one we will be seeing of higher rarity, higher than SSR, it's actually going to be an SP memory, and that is going to be for Nishinoya. Now, SP Nishinoya is going to be at least 7 banners away from right now, and that's not counting any reruns. So what that basically means is that if you actually want to save up for a future SP memory, you have to wait for another at least 3 months, and that basically makes it very, very important for you guys to actually get an SSR memory in the meantime. Now, you may be not actually summoning for this memory because there is actually going to be another alternative, which is that if you can go into the store, if you go to special offers, what you can see is that in the match streak store, there is also going to be a liberal memory here. And this one is not bad either. Now, I will probably say the one for the Fukurodani liberal, the Komi one, is better than this. However, consider that you can potentially redeem this one for free rather than using your memory ticket. I guess that can also be good enough justification for actually not summoning on that. So you can, pay some bit of attention to this. The only problem with this is depending on, how much currency you have and whether you actually want to prioritize your milk voucher and the 4-star player, that will dictate how soon you will actually be able to actually redeem for this memory. So you may also want to consider that aspect as well, okay? But personally, if it's up to me, I would definitely ask you guys to consider this 2 SSR memories, but they are definitely very good. For this mid blocker one, I mean, to be honest, because Hiragami will be out soon, so if you really want to skip mid blocker, because we're, let's say if you already went for a mid blocker memory in the selector, when you done of the beginner event, which is kind of my advice for the selector for the memories, then you should already pick up one mid blocker memory there. And then you can also get the Hiragami one. That should only be another 3 banners away. So you can potentially wait for another month and a half and just get a UR memory. So for that reason, I guess you can potentially skip this one, even though this is definitely, in my opinion, the best SSR memories out there. And like I said, for the liberal one, you can also potentially just go for the one in the match streak store instead for that SSR memory rather than this one if you want to save up this resources. Okay, it's going to be up to you guys on whether how you actually want to use your tickets on this. But I just want to really highlight those 2 memories out because I do feel like they can be good choices if you are if you actually have resources to go for some SSRs. Okay. So I think that's enough of an intro for the memories. Now I'll be doing something myself. So I have tons of tickets, okay? So let me just go straight into it. I will be picking up both of them. Those two SSR memories are the only SSR memories I will be doing. So for the very first one, I am just gonna go all out with my temples. However, for the second one, what I'm actually gonna do is that I'll be doing it one pull at a time, just so that I don't really waste my tickets. So let's start off with this one. Okay, it's the mid blocker one. Okay, no lock there. No lock there. Still no lock there. Come on. And no luck there. Okay. How am I gonna hit pity for this? Oh, that was the last one. I literally hit pity for that. Okay. So the first pull was a bit of a shaft, but let's change the memory now for the second one. So I did say I'll do it one by one, but I'm not gonna start from now because the rate is quite low right now. I am gonna take a look at the pull info and just see when does that actually increase the rate. It increased the rate after the first 55 recruits, okay? So I'm going to do the first 50 just with multis, and then afterwards I'll go into singles. Oh my god, this feels like a bit of a shaft. Okay, let's go into singles. So I already had to go full pity for the first memory. Let's see how long it takes for this one. So that's 55 pulls, 56 pulls, 57 pulls, 58 pulls, 59 pulls, 60 pulls. Great. Oh, 61. Okay, I got in 9 summons early. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay. Overall, I'll probably say this is still a bit of a shaft, but I guess it's acceptable. All right, let me know what your guys' plans are. Are you going to summon for this SSR memories, or would you just be saving them out for the UR ones?